the first 10 pages of Spartacus, Blood and Sand, the TV series. The pilots hold almost more weight than movies because people decide if they're going to follow the entire series. They do what the first 10 pages of a movie do. They set up the whole show, they outline key moments, they foreshadow a lot of things to come, they provide background information, and of course they have the first 10 pages of their own that has to do all these things, which I'm going to talk about now. Overall, Spartacus is a show that does rely heavily on gore, fake blood, slow motion, all of those tropes, but it's also a very artistic show with superb transitions, such as this one. Time slows as we follow the blood spray up into the sky. It freezes in a familiar pattern, becoming the craters on the full moon as we morph to a full moon illuminating a crisp night. This is not used in the show. They cut it, but there are so many fantastic transitions throughout the entire series that either make you think about something, it asks a question, or it's just beautifully done so that we can effortlessly follow the motion of the show. It also has exquisite dialogue, such as, "We have not always been as brothers, let us put such matters aside, uniting in just cause." This is a Roman person talking to a bunch of Thracians, and it tells us that there's been a lot of tension in the past, that Rome has conquered these people, but is now asking for help, pretty much, and it's got a lot of context to it. There's also dialogue such as, "He speaks out of turn, yet the truth falls from his mouth," which is not as laced with information, but it shows us the flavor of the time period that they've put into this writing, and they consistently do that throughout the whole thing, and it doesn't inhibit the meaning at all. So the first episode is not as good as the later episodes, but it's still rather strong and does set up the entire series very well. The opening image in the script is of a map where we follow it and we see that we're in Capua, and then we go in to our scene. However, in the show, they've cut that, and we just instantly see Spartacus in chains in this grimy dungeon, pretty much. It goes up through the roof, and we see that we're in this arena, and we watch the fight that ensues. It doesn't have any dialogue, but it instantly sets us up to know that he's either a slave or he's oppressed. He looks proud and defiant that he's beaten. And this shows us so much information that we don't get in the script because we first see him behind bars while he's watching the fight. And he's got a sword, and this sets him up as having a lot more power. He's less oppressed. He could be his choice to be here. He could have been here for a while. We really don't know. And we don't get to ever see him in those chains in the first part of the episode, which really is a detriment. But I think how they did it in the show is a lot better, both for the chains and because we really don't need to know right off the bat that we're in Capua. The arena is where the series is focused, and that's where our first focus in the episode should be. The directions for the fight scene in that first arena shot are exquisite and follow almost exactly how they go in the show. So while you're reading it, you can picture pretty much the same thing that they film. So, image from that I really enjoyed was, briefly reflected in the gleam of the blood-splattered steel are the twisted faces of the crowd howling for blood, which is both very impactful as an image, but it holds a lot of symbolism and shows the twisted pleasures of the crowd and points out the barbarity of the sport, not just commenting on these people in the past in this fictitious world, but also on us, that we are watching the same things now, even though we're supposedly civilized. People argue that it's not real, so it's not as barbaric, but it may as well be for how realistic our graphics have gotten, and just for the fact that we still enjoy watching these sort of violent shows. So on page 5, there's some excellent foreshadowing when Sura says, "You would fight no more," and Spartacus says, "Forever to be by your side." This shows without saying, in fact they don't say it ever in this first episode, that they love each other a lot. She's worried about him, and he's saying, "Well, I'll never go back and fight as soon as I don't need to fight off these particular people. But there's a second way to read it, as foreshadowing for the rest of the show, because we can take the information that we know that he's in the arena and that he needs to fight, and also we can take further knowledge that we get later that this scene gets reworked to be that he will forever fight to be by her side, which is quite a statement of love in itself for somebody like him. In page 6, there's a description of Thrace as his home. It's beautiful, green, it's lush. It's told to be a barbaric place, but it's Spartacus's whole life. He's got his wife. He's happy. He lives and thrives as a free man. Whereas Capua and the arena is a dry place that doesn't hold any beauty, and he lacks purpose. There's no sustenance there for him. So on page 7, we see that Sura both believes heavily in the gods and receives these visions from him, such as my husband kneeling on his knees, bowing before a great red serpent, the life flowing from his veins. This is a brief, concise piece of dialogue, but it holds so much meaning that quickly grows throughout the whole series. We keep coming back to this image, and it keeps expanding up until the very last image in the show. On the top of page 9, it sets up Spartacus as a leader, and as skilled in war, he takes charge of the situation where his people are battling the Getae before the Romans get there. When we use this information later to believe that he's capable of turning the slaves against their masters, which he does at the end of season 1, there's a lot of subtext in the entire episode. On the show, it's never stated how the arena is the main source of entertainment for these people, but it clearly is. And it doesn't say that Glaber wants Spartacus dead because of the humiliation, but it's implied, and it does come close to stating. Batiatus and the other Linista never say that they hate each other outwardly, but there's definitely underlying tension between them. An example from the first 10 pages is that they never state that the Romans think that the Thracians are expendable, but it clearly is when they let them lead the charge, and the Romans never come to help until the end of the battle, so that they don't risk Roman lives, and instead let the Thracians die. It shows the tone of the whole season. The Romans never think anyone else is important. They always give their slave lives up. Sometimes they kill them themselves. They really don't care, and it's just shown. It's never really stated. And that moment in the first 10 pages, the army is treating the Thracians like slaves already, which they probably already think of them as, even though they are technically free men. So the main theme of the arena is apparent from the start. The oppression and the bloodshed are also very prevalent. The slave aspect is prevalent through most of the series. The catalyst could be read to be in the first 10 pages, just the mere fact that the protagonist has been captured and is now a slave or prisoner. But the real catalyst, I think, comes just after the first 10 pages, I think around 12 or 13. It's his defiance and humiliation, like his humiliating Glaber in the battle area where they're staying, that led Glaber to track him and his wife down after they fled from their massacred village, and to take them prisoner. I think that is really the key moment that sparks the whole show, because it leads to him being this prisoner, and everything that he does from there on is to get Sura back and all of that. So that was my analysis of the first 10 pages. I hope you liked it. Thanks.